The average person is said to spend 15 minutes in the bathroom. Why not take advantage of that time and learn something new? Presenting the 15-minute podcast on weird facts, crazy details, and funny particulars that you'll be able to enjoy while you're taking a on your free time. Welcome to The Shit with Sam Butler. Welcome to another episode of The Shit Podcast. I have a very special guest back again, third time, all the way from Mexico City, visiting us here in Ciudad Juarez. Meny Saenz, welcome back, buddy.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. It worked out perfect. We just did the episode in Spanish. We talked about beer in wartime.
Cold beer,
and how awesome that was. But we're going to talk about something that's kind of related, totally different subject. First of all, to give it a little bit of history, we're going to talk about the Volstead Act, or Prohibition, as many people know it, which got passed in 1919.
1919. Right. And that made Juarez famous, right? Because all of the guys from El Paso just crossed the border.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I believe even the bootlegging came through Mexico into the United States. That doesn't happen anymore. That happened in 1919, But Juarez was a place to come have a good time.
Yeah.
1919 to 1933 was the law of Prohibition.
1933?
Yeah, 1919 it got passed. It went into effect in 1920.
Okay.
Right? And then it went all the way to 1933 in most of the United States.
It was a long time.
It was a pretty long time.
Years.
Yeah, although some of the states fought it and they were able to kind of repeal it. Okay. But a little bit about Prohibition and the Volstead Act. This act started. There was a women's league. There's the anti-saloon league.
Okay.
Right, and they reasoned that alcohol was the cause of everything.
Okay.
Right, which in a way it was true because
like the 80s panic, satanic panic. Everything is Satan's fault.
Yeah, everything is satanic. Well, this happened. What started happening was people were drinking, and then the breweries figured out how to really retail beer, and alcohol, and spirits and so on. And so then all of these saloons start popping up everywhere. They said that there was one saloon for every 150 to 200 people in the United States at one point in time.
Okay.
Right.
Saloon will be like a
bar,
a pub,
and so the saloon keepers are now competing against each other to see how can we get more customers, And so then they start introducing other things like prostitution and gambling.
The guy at the piano like
That's right. And if you know, they call it the Roaring 20s, right? Because the 20s were crazy in the United States in the 1920s, because 2020 sucked. But the 1920s,
also sucked.
That decade. Well, I went to Chicago recently, and I did the little mob tour, the Chicago mob tour. And they were saying that back during Prohibition, there was over 10,000 bars and speakeasies in Chicago, whereas today there's something like 5,000.
So the problem got worse. Yeah.
It got worse, right? And so then this got me thinking, well, what was the whole point of Prohibition? Now we know that a lot of religious organizations were behind Prohibition. And as a matter of fact, they proposed it, and it passed in Congress. The president vetoed it. President Wilson said, no, we're not going to do that. And then the Senate passed it. So they repealed his veto, and then it became a law. So now
the president was not on board.
Yeah, it was like the president was not on board.
Like, what? Prohibition? Hell no.
He's all taking a scotch. No, we're
Hell
not
to the no.
We're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So Prohibition passed. And one of the things that always got me wondering was, why was this such a big push? Because as I researched this, I found out that this wasn't the first country that tried it. I mean, they say that even as far as back as the Aztecs
They wanted
They
to try
they were
it.
like, no more
pulque.
drinking, no
Okay.
pulque. Yeah, whatever. And in the Netherlands, they had tried it. All these different countries had tried prohibition, and it never worked. I think we're going through something very similar right now with marijuana.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, some states in the 1920 prohibition said they were on board. Some of them weren't. It's like
Yeah.
the same thing right now.
It's the same thing. The thing about the United States is that each state gets to kind of function independently.
Yeah.
And so they can decide what's good for their state, and then that's why it's the United States. So
Is marijuana legal in New Mexico or not yet?
what's that? Marijuana is medically legal as far as I know,
Medically.
but recreational legal, I don't think so.
Okay.
Right. But one of the states, ironically, one of the states that repealed it right away was, and I say right away, was in a few years, was Nevada. They were like, no, we're not going to have
Right
this. Right. So prohibition happens. And as prohibition happens, everybody gets creative on how to drink. And that was the birth of the speakeasy. The speakeasy was because you had to whisper or you had to have a secret code to get into a speakeasy to be able to drink. Most speakeasies, the authorities knew about. It's hard to outlaw something that everyone is involved in.
Yeah.
Right? For example, marijuana is illegal in the United States, but even our vice president has been known to use marijuana.
Yeah, it's like
Right. And so, and which is ironic, and I don't want to get political, but it's ironic because she was a prosecutor and she put a lot of people behind bars for using marijuana.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the big beefs that everybody has in the United States with the current vice president is that.
Yeah, or the thing that when they legalize marijuana, they should let free like a bunch of
all those people.
Yeah, all those people are
Right. But that's getting into politics, and I don't really want to talk about politics.
Yeah.
But I'm making the point. So what
But
happened?
Andres Manuel.
So what happened was everybody got creative, and of course you've heard of the pot distilleries, the pot stills, right? For moonshine.
Oh, yeah.
And all these different things. That I think I think everybody thinks of moonshine. Everybody thinks of making illegal liquor and transporting it. But what happened was they got real creative in the West Coast especially.
Okay.
They got creative because you could sell all the ingredients to make liquor.
Okay, but
That wasn't illegal. You just couldn't sell the liquor.
Okay.
So what did they do in California? They figured out how to condense grapes into a brick.
A brick.
So there was a brick of, you could order a brick of grapes, concentrate, right? That was designed to make grape juice.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things.
The dehydrated grape. Or
Dehydrated grape.
That.
Now, and I'm getting ahead of myself because what I wanted to talk about was the real reason there was prohibition.
Okay.
The real reason there was prohibition, and this is something that I learned in a documentary a few years ago, and I read up on it, and it seems to have some weight. Don't quote me, I don't know for sure, but it seems that the real problem with alcohol was that the church started losing membership.
Okay.
Right? Because the women would go to church on Sunday.
But
the husband wouldn't because he was out partying all night on Saturday, right?
Okay.
And so the church started to realize that they were losing money
Yeah.
because the head of the house wasn't showing up to church.
Okay. It
Right?
makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense, right? And so then they started to say, well, why isn't this guy showing up? And in the black community, they had juke joints, which was, the saloons and so on and so forth. And so when all these women were going to church by themselves and the men were spending the church's money on partying. So a lot of guys were out drinking it up, having a good time. They didn't have money for the tithe. They didn't have. So now the church is like, hey, you're messing with my money.
Okay.
Right. And that's why the push for prohibition was so big.
They could have just changed the day, Like, we're not gonna Sunday mass. We're gonna do Wednesday mass.
The problem is that they'd get paid on Friday and by Sunday they were broke.
Okay, well, yeah.
Right, and they're going like, "What's the problem?" Well, the problem
Alcohol.
is everybody's getting drunk. Everybody's having a good time, and even nowadays, I know that I have friends that are very conservative, Christian, and they don't consume alcohol. and they don't believe that it's they actually believe that it's a worse drug than marijuana. So that's a very respectful point of view as well. And if you think about it, all the drunk driving and everything that happens and all the deaths that happen from that, there's a certain amount of
alcohol involved. Or
truth to that.
Yeah,
you know?
Because, marijuana doesn't change your personality as alcohol. You get drunk and then...
Yeah, alcohol is a depressant. So it's one of those things that, you have the happy drunk, the mean drunk.
Yeah.
La mala copa, like they say, right?
Mala copa.
Like there's people you don't go drinking with because you know that they're...
you're going to have a bad time, yeah.
That's right. So getting back to the brick of grapes.
The brick of grapes,
right?
Okay.
They came up with this brick of grapes that they could ship anywhere in the United States. And then you had to have a warning label.
Okay.
Much like you see on cigarettes today. That says, cigarettes...
They're going to kill you. You're going to
kill
lose
you.
your tongue.
Yeah. Especially here in Mexico, like you see, like if you look at the cigar cartons, the cigarette cartons, right? They'll put like graphics on them.
Yeah, like a fetus or a guy without
a jaw.
The jaw,
And the first time I came to Mexico, because I'm a cigar smoker, and so the first time I came to Mexico and bought cigars, I was surprised that the warning label, it was so graphic.
Cigars have them too?
Yeah, everything, all tobacco products have those graphics in Mexico. Just like potato chips have a black stop sign that say too much fat. That's ever gonna stop me from eating a bag of chips.
Yeah, I don't care.
Right? It's like, I know I'm fat. You know that? Yeah. Well, the first time I came to Mexico and I saw it, I said, "Oh wow! So they sell the good shit here." That's awesome.
Yeah, because that's the same thing that if you put like a car crash picture on a beer.
Yeah, it's like
you don't need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, by the time you get ready to leave, that's the problem with alcohol is that people, when they're drunk, feel that they're capable of doing it.
Yeah,
that's the biggest problem. But getting back to the brick of grapes.
Yeah.
It had a warning label. What the manufacturers did is they said, "Oh, let's put a step-by-step instruction on how to make wine." But we'll put...
Do not do it.
Do not
Do not do this.
put this in a jug.
Okay.
Do not add sugar. And let it sit in your cabinet for 20 days.
You
do not want to do that because then this grape juice will become wine.
And a wink face like, do not.
And so what happens, there was this explosion of wine consumption in the United States. There's a lot of data on it. There was a specific type of grape that they preferred because it had a tougher skin, it was more resilient, and it actually they said that grapes went from like $1.90 a ton to $350 a ton during Prohibition. So it really boosted the market, the agricultural consumption of grapes. Problem is, a matter of fact, even the type of grape that they would use was a grape that hadn't been seen in the United States ever. And it was like a hybrid from France, and then that grape almost became extinct. But due to this, they had like 400,000 acres of this grape growing in California.
Okay.
They said that legally you could consume up to 200 bottles of liters of wine, in a year, which was like 2 bottles of wine per person per day.
Per day, okay.
So this was like a nice loophole for drinking wine. And it was,
we're not breaking the law.
We're not breaking the law because we're buying a brick. It's like it's almost to me it's almost like the CBD oil, where it's like it's not marijuana.
It's CBD.
It's a derivative.
Almost the same.
Almost. So that's what's happening. Now the bad part is the wine wasn't particularly good.
Yeah, I imagine because you're not having quality control or anything like that.
But it was better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And so Prohibition ends. And they said that because of this type of agriculture, the wine industry in the United States actually suffered.
Okay.
Because they had real quality control issues. So it wasn't until 1975 that the U.S. kind of got back on track on wine production and actually beat France in a blind taste test for wines. And if you know anything about wine, California,
I have great wines.
and even Texas now is a huge wine producer, and the Texas wines are actually pretty well ranked in the wine world.
With barbecue
Barbecue
wines.
Hey, they're red, right? No.
same color.
That's the story of the grape brick.
The grape brick. I haven't heard of that. And it's awesome. Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's the shit. That's the shit.
The shit for today.
For today in this episode. Hey, do not add sugar. Do not add water, and don't put this in a cabinet for 20 days.
Do not do
that, please. So that's it. Thank you guys for joining us on this episode of the Shit Podcast. Manny, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, Sam.
Yeah. How can people find you on social media?
You can find me at arroba at no soy Manuel.
No soy Manuel.
Yeah, I'm not Manuel.
You're not Manuel.
Yeah.
He's Meny.
Meny.
But you can find me at Tu Amigo Sam on social media and also my YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, leave your comments, share the video. That would help out a bunch. We appreciate you guys watching us. We appreciate you guys inviting us into your home. And also, you can find me on all of the podcast platforms as Sta Cagado Podcast. But that wraps us up for this episode. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you, Sam.